If you've ever wondered what the Supreme Court justices think of one another, look no further than today's majority opinion. Justice Amy Coney Barrett just nuked Ketanji Brown Jackson out of orbit and essentially called her arguments so stupid that they're not even worth responding to. And the best part in all of this is that MSNBC has been having a meltdown all day and they're actually quoting Jackson's arguments on air. Take a look.
Hi there, everyone. Happy Friday. It's 4 o'clock in the East. Quote, an existential threat to the rule of law. Rarely has the liberal wing of the United States Supreme Court sounded as alarmed about the direction of the country and the court. Now, the judges didn't rule on the substance of all this. They didn't render a decision on the merits of Donald Trump's decision to end birthright citizenship for the children of undocumented immigrants. Instead, what the court did today was to rule on the process piece of this. They ruled that judges can only issue decisions or rulings that deliver relief for the group of people involved, for the people who sued, the plaintiffs, and that they could not block that policy from going into effect nationwide for anyone else who might be affected by the policy. Here's how Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson puts it, quote, the court's decision to permit the executive to violate the Constitution with respect to anyone who has not yet sued is an existential threat to the rule of law. It is important to recognize that the executive's bid to vanquish so-called universal injunctions is at bottom a request for this court's permission to engage in unlawful behavior.
Now, you just gotta love how Nicole Wallace completely misrepresents this case. She's oh so upset that the Supreme Court just ruled on process and how things should be done. And she's lamenting the fact that they didn't rule on the merits of birthright citizenship. But come on, Nicole, that was the whole point of the case. Why else do you think it was called Trump versus CASA, or Court-Appointed Special Advocates? Why does President Trump's name come first? Because he's the plaintiff. He's the one who filed this lawsuit. Why? Because radical activist judges stepped outside of their purview. They stepped outside of their authority, and they were weaponizing universal injunctions to try to stonewall the Trump administration. So he went directly to the Supreme Court and said, hey, can you clarify what the process is here? Can you clarify where the boundaries of our power are? This lawsuit has nothing to do with birthright citizenship, and yet the left is trying to claim that the Supreme Court is abdicating its responsibilities by just ruling on the process. So that was really deceptive of Nicole Wallace to do, and it is dangerous because MSNBC, while the ratings are tanking, they do have a lot of viewers, and that sort of misinformation is still harmful for our national discourse. So Justice Amy Coney Barrett was the one who wrote the majority opinion, and like I said at the top of the video, she went completely scorched earth on Justice Jackson. But first, I want to read the core of this opinion because it's critical to understanding this case. She writes, the United States has filed 3 emergency applications challenging the scope of a federal court's authority to enjoin government officials from enforcing an executive order. Traditionally, courts issued injunctions prohibiting executive officials from enforcing a challenged law or policy only against the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. So here, the majority is making it very clear that it's these radical activist judges, not President Trump, not the Trump administration, it's these leftist judges who are challenging norms. They're the ones breaking tradition. They're the ones overstepping precedent here for their own power. Obviously, because they don't agree with what the administration is doing. It has nothing to do with the rule of law. She continues, the injunctions before us today reflect a more recent development. District courts asserting the power to prohibit enforcement of a law or policy against anyone. These injunctions, known as universal injunctions, likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has granted to federal courts. We therefore grant the government's application to partially stay the injunctions entered below. And there were 3 separate injunctions, and that includes, obviously, the one against birthright citizenship. Now, because the Supreme Court hasn't ruled on the merits of birthright citizenship, it's very likely that another case will go before the Supreme Court. But like I said, Trump versus CASA was not about the merits of that case. Rather, it was about process and where the boundaries of authority and power are. Well, once the majority made its position clear, they started tearing apart the dissenting arguments, and they left no stone unturned. So Justice Amy Coney Barrett writes, we will not dwell on Justice Jackson's argument, which is at odds with more than 2 centuries worth of precedent, not to mention the Constitution itself. We observe only this. Justice Jackson decries an imperial executive while embracing an imperial judiciary. So she's essentially calling her a hypocrite there. I absolutely love it. Now, this next paragraph, Barrett goes really in depth, citing precedent, citing cases and opinions, and really, she's showing the receipts, right? And after that, she writes, Justice Jackson, the last paragraph here, skips over that part because analyzing the governing statutes involves boring legalese. She seeks to answer a far more basic question of enormous practical significance. Ooh, yeah. I mean, legalese is quite literally the core of their job. So Barrett is either accusing Jackson of not doing her job or being too stupid to do her job. In fact, she continues, Justice Jackson, however, chooses a startling line of attack that is tethered neither to these sources nor, frankly, to any doctrine whatsoever, waving away attention to the limits on judicial power as a, quote, these are Jackson's words, mind-numbingly technical query. Mind-numbingly technical query? I mean, the law is technical. Legalese is technical. You're supposed to understand it. I mean, literal court cases are fought over where an apostrophe is placed in a sentence to understand what something means, right? It is a very technical practice here. And, we shouldn't be surprised if she is truly that dumb, because this same Justice Jackson, since the October session started. But we shouldn't be that surprised because Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson is often confused. She often doesn't understand when someone is making a technical argument. Take a listen.
Oh, I don't understand. Can I just understand? And I don't understand. And so what I don't understand, I don't understand your argument. I'm just trying to understand your answer. I don't understand. I guess I don't understand. I don't understand. And I'm just trying to understand. I don't understand, but I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to understand.
You get the idea. And the sad part is this video goes on for about 4 more minutes. These are obviously recordings from the court as well as the transcript. And by the way, all of these are since October of last year. So it's not as if, we're compiling all of these statements over her entire tenure. I mean, the fact that this is just since October should really raise some alarm bells here. Last but not least, Justice Barrett had an admonition for Jackson using her own words against her. She wrote, Justice Jackson would do well to heed her own admonition. Everyone, from the president on down, is bound by law. And yes, that goes for judges too. Now, even on CNN, they were proclaiming that this was a huge victory for the Trump administration. And yes, they reaffirmed that this had nothing to do with birthright citizenship, but rather was limiting the power of these district courts, that they were trying to overexert their authority and trying to extend their authority beyond what it's supposed to be.
Donald Trump, multiples of that. And now, finally, this case has made its way up to the Supreme Court. And so we're going to go through this case as quickly as we can. It looks like, at first glimpse, and we're just starting, it looks like the court has put some limits on the ability of district courts, trial courts, to issue those kind of rulings. And it looks like the court has said district courts only have the power to do that in certain very narrow circumstances. So we're going to go through this and get the details soon, but that's the gist.
Yeah.
That is exactly right, and I actually have more from the main opinion as well as the dissents that we'll get into at the end of this video. But first, I would like to acknowledge Houston Sammy Girl 79 as the member of today's Governor's Club. These are people who give super thanks or tips to the channel. Thank you so much, and I'm glad that you enjoy. Now, Jonathan Turley was on Fox News, and he said that this was actually more about President Trump's legacy and making sure that he's able to accomplish his goals in this second term and preserve his legacy historically.
Keep in mind, when we watch President Trump at the upcoming event, what was at stake was still his legacy. He went forward in a number of different ways to achieve the same results. But what presidents have said is that when these individual judges do this, it takes us a couple years often to run the course and reverse these things. Then we're in the second half of our term. We don't have time to fulfill our promises to voters. This doesn't make any sense. It's not workable. And here the Supreme Court is agreeing with the Trump administration that these judges are well past their authority given to them, and they need to cut back on these injunctions and focus on the parties in their immediate case, in their immediate district.
So President Trump held a presser to respond to the Supreme Court's rulings that were handed down. There were actually multiple that came out today. And when time was up, he asked them, should we keep going? And just listen to the response. And keep in mind, this is mostly a room filled with the mainstream media. Yeah, there's the new media seat, and he's trying to get new voices in there. But this is still largely the old guard. And I think you'll be surprised by the reaction here.
So many questions. Should we keep this going, Pam? Yes. This is the opposite of Biden. Biden would take a half a question and he'd leave without answering it.
Yeah, and I mean, they weren't like, yes. You could tell that they were actually genuinely having a good time and are just appreciating the transparency as well as just the accessibility of this administration. Well, more from the main opinion here, but federal courts do not exercise general oversight of the executive branch. They resolve cases and controversies consistent with the authority Congress has given them. And this is an important point. And what I love about that is that this ruling is reaffirming the role of the court, right? And it's about having three co-equal branches of government and not allowing rogue judges to come in and supersede the authority of the executive branch. Now, there was a compelling dissent at first when you look at it, but when you think a little further, it really starts to fall apart. Now, the dissent wrote, no right is safe in the new legal regime that the court creates. Today, the threat is to birthright citizenship. Tomorrow, a different administration may try to seize firearms from law-abiding citizens or prevent people of certain faiths from gathering to worship. So obviously, what the left is doing here, what the dissenters are doing, is they're trying to fearmonger, right? They're saying, well, if they can do this to birthright citizenship now, then a Democrat president will be able to do this, yada, yada, yada. But that's not what this is about. This is about the process here. And there is a counter. You can find relief actually through class action lawsuits. And that's what the left was doing here. They were actually trying to circumvent. They were going around the law, trying to wiggle through whatever supposed loopholes they could find to rule through executive fiat. But there are many legal ways to challenge something the executive is doing. For example, a state attorney general can file a lawsuit if they believe that the federal government is doing something unconstitutional, right? But we don't see any state AGs doing that right now. It was happening under Joe Biden, by the way. It really tells you who actually respects the rule of law here. And there is a process for escalation, right? I'd like to make an analogy. Many of you know a lot about healthcare, for example, and usually surgery or invasive procedures are the last thing you want to do, right? You don't want to do something invasive unless you have to, unless there's no other option. Usually you want to start with lifestyle changes, or can we do medications? And you work your way up to that last step here, right? And that's what the left was doing. They were totally just leapfrogging everything. And quite frankly, it's a little ironic, more than ironic, when you consider they're the ones who call President Trump an authoritarian. Last but not least, yet by forging, this is from the main opinion, by forging a shortcut to relief that benefits parties and non-parties alike, universal injunctions circumvent Rule 23's procedural protections and allow courts to create de facto class actions at will. Why bother with a Rule 23 class action when the quick fix of a universal injunction is on the table? And so there you have it. The Supreme Court is just trying to preserve the law of the land. They're trying to preserve and protect the processes we already have in the books. And hey, Democrats, and anyone complaining about this, you know who writes the laws? Congress. If you don't like something, Congress has the power to change it, right? Congress writes the law, the executive enforces it, and the judicial, I know I'm way oversimplifying, interprets what it is. But as always, all of that is just my analysis and commentary. That's what's going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So eventually, a case regarding the merits of birthright citizenship will make its way up to the Supreme Court. How do you hope that turns out? Are you for it? Are you against it? Do you want some sort of middle ground? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you haven't already, please be sure to leave me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.